because it does sound ridiculous when you hear it and it's never happened to you. And it's like, no, I'm the author. I decide the story. I have complete control over everything that happens here. And the reality is, if you're writing a good story and you create real people to be in your book, they will tell you what is going to happen just as much as you decide. Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney. I'm sitting here with Rosaire Bushey, author of the 30 Stone Saga, the Ranger's Deck series, and the recently released Sigil of Enderune. Welcome to the show, Ro.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Of course. So, one, I didn't realize I was going to rhyme there at the end. I didn't realize that until I said it out loud. I'm very okay with it. But I'm really glad to have you on the show because for this episode, we're going to be diving into your own writing journey, the things that you've gone through in your latest book. But we're also going to have you on again next week, where we're going to be talking about self-editing, something that a lot of people need practice in, and you seem to have a lot of experience in.
Well, yeah, maybe a little too much, but yeah, editing's just one of those things that I think every writer, once you learn how to write, you need to learn how to edit.
Oh yeah, and we'll definitely be digging into a lot of that stuff for next week. But for this week, the first thing that I wanted to ask you is like, what actually inspired you to transition as a veteran and a family man into writing novels like Sigil of Enderune? Like, was there a particular moment or book that kind of sparked that transition for you?
It's one of those things that you kind of see people do it and you think about it and you go, well, that would be kind of cool to do that. And then you look at it and you go, God, that would just be so difficult, right? I don't think I can do that. Um, and then back in like 2015 or something, I had some GI Bill money left. And so I said, I'll go get a English degree in creative writing. Just, why not? And part of the program was that you had to write at least a decent portion of a book for your final project, right? So I said, okay, I've had this idea in my head for years. I'll use that. And so I started writing it, and it probably took another year or two after that program had finished before I actually finished it. So there was a lot of kind of start and stops. I mean, I'm always amazed at the people who sit there when they come on Ball to Balding or whatever and talk to us and sit there and go, "Yeah, I write 2,000 words a day every day." It's like, well,
I
I'll do that
wish.
for right, yeah, I'll do that for a month or so, and then I'll take a week, 3 months off, doing other things, and then I'll say, okay, I've got to get back to the book and start churning on it a bit. That's where that first book came from. Was I realized, okay, I can do this. And then that first time you type the end, it's like, okay, I did this, right? And then you kind of have to go through and edit it and put a cover on it and all that kind of stuff. But it once you do it once, it's like, okay, I can do this, right? This isn't too bad. Some point around the third book, I remember very distinctly pushing myself back from my desk and kind of saying out loud to myself, "This is work," right? I mean, it's still fun, right? But it it,
Yeah.
it is work to actually have to sit there and figure all this stuff out and kind of keep everything, you know, in your head, like who is everybody and where are they going and what are all these people I've created doing now? And quite often they're doing things that you don't expect them to do. And
I think that's something a lot of people who romanticize the idea of either living off their art, whether it's like painting, poetry, any kind of writing or anything. Like when you decide that this is a life goal for you and something that you want to do to either support yourself or be a major part, it is work no matter what you do. And you're kind of just choosing the type of suck or the type of hard that you want to deal with.
yeah,
But a lot
I
of
mean,
people don't understand that at first.
there's a reason that they call it a starving artist, and you've never heard anybody call it a starving engineer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason for that. I mean,
That's
fortunately, I have a job and everything, so I don't. This doesn't have to provide payment for anything. It's like they say you got to spend money to lose money kind of thing.
mhm.
But I know a lot of hobbies that are a lot more expensive that you
Oh
can't
yeah.
look at on your shelves, right? I mean, you ever downhill skied?
I
It's
have. It's very expensive. It's
it's
very fun for a day.
right, right. At a certain age, though, it's kinda like, yeah, I can't be hitting the ground that hard.
I do fall a lot. Like, I like to ski, but I also have no idea what I'm doing because I've only done it less than 6 times. So
Right.
every time I go, it's just like, I'm gonna kiss this mountain so many times before the day is over.
At
Uh,
a certain age, you just realize that that's not happening anymore. It's like, "I'll go to the
not
mountain.
feasible.
I will sit by the fire with a drink. That'll be fine.
There you go.
You go
Ooh,
have fun."
off topic, important question. What is the drink of choice?
Single malt scotch.
Good choice. I'm still working my way up to scotches, but I'm very deep into bourbons. But that's I
It's
feel like where most people start with whiskey.
yeah, I mean, any whiskey's fine if we have a local distiller in, Blacksburg, Virginia called, oh, I'm gonna forget the name now, J.H. Bard,
Mhm.
and they do a maple whiskey, which,
Ooh.
is really good. They use, like, real maple syrup as part of it, and it's fantastic.
You're
Um,
in Vermont?
no, we're in, Southwest Virginia. I'm from Vermont.
Oh, Virginia,
Um,
not Vermont.
yeah, we're in Southwest Virginia. They make syrup in Virginia too. It's yeah, but,
Oh,
you know,
the more you know, I guess.
yeah, they don't
So
make a lot of
s
it.
so going through, that process with, like, your first book and going for that degree with your GI Bill, at what point did you start to feel like you were no longer just doing this as a hobby and you felt like an author?
I'll let you know when I get there.
What? You have
I
how many books now?
Yeah, but it's one of those things. I think there's probably gonna be a point, maybe, hopefully, one day, where I look at because I don't advertise, right? I don't do that whole advertise thing. I'm not a big person on, social media. I'm generally not a blow my own horn kinda guy. It's very awkward kind of thing to do. I'm much more self-deprecating. Um, so because I don't do any of that, I sell about what I put into that, right? So when I go to shows like Comic Cons and things, I'll sell books, and that's very nice. And there are people who I've seen, year after year at shows who are like, "Oh yeah, I bought your books last time. You do have a new one," and they'll buy the new one or whatever. And that's very sustaining in a way. Um, but I've never introduced myself as an author, just because it's not what I do full time. Maybe I should. Um, you know, maybe one of these days, one of them will catch on well enough where people will see it and say the girl with the funny name.
That's actually kinda interesting. I have noticed, a kind of shift in your online presence of lately. You're doing more shows like this, promoting your book through, like, YouTube interviews and, like sorry, on X and, like, social media platforms and stuff like that. I have noticed there has been a change lately in how you present yourself and how often you do. Uh, what can you tell me about that shift and, like, what has motivated that?
Oddly, so when I met Mike Molman several years ago now, he was just like Mr. I am not on social media. I don't care about any of that. And he was full on Statler from the Muppet Show. Um, and and I was always like, oh man, come on, you got and he is just taken to it, right? And just crazy. And I actually just came back to Twitter just a couple of months ago. I just kind of said, I don't need this in my life. And then I kind of went, yeah, you probably do. Um, so I this is the first book I put out in a year. So I'm just trying to start doing that. And I think doing the YouTube show is kind of helped me along that road too. It's like one of those things, you kind of got to get over yourself and you've got to put it out there so people know it exists. Otherwise, you're writing for a party of one.
Yeah, that's kind of a huge thing, and I know, like, you guys have been doing Bald and Balding for how long now?
Just over 2 years.
Wow. It
Yeah.
feels like longer. It
It
could be
it
just because I've only been on the scene for about that long too, but it feels like longer. You guys have been doing great.
it goes so quickly, and the community around. the indie author community is just fantastic. The only thing I've ever seen like it, um, in high school, I was on the cross country team, and very cross country teams are generally very kind of tight groups. Um, and the indie community reminds me of that a lot, uh, because they're all just there for each other. There's no kind of competition, right? There's people aren't, getting catty about someone else doing well or anything like that. If someone does well, it's great. Good for you. Well done. Um, and even in this space here, right, doing YouTube channels of talking to people, there's quite a few people who do that as well. And good, because that's just more opportunity for authors to get out there and kind of spread the word around it. And we're always looking for um, those opportunities because I keep telling Mike, it's like, why don't we interview each other and promote our own books on this show? We have our own
Honestly, that's a
show, we
great
could do that.
idea.
And we're like, yeah, we probably won't do that. Um,
Ah, you should. That's a great idea.
we
Honestly,
have a
you
little
guys can
fun with it, but
yeah.
people come to see the other people, so it's
Well, like
fun.
I was just watching a conversation the other day. It was two different tubers from two different channels. They got on a show together, and they were just interviewed each other, just taking turns asking each other questions
Yeah.
about like their books and their process. Like I think you and Mike would do a really good show like that. I think people would show up for that. I promote this. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll take it under advisement. I think the way you're doing it is actually much more difficult as a single person because I mean,
Oh.
with two of us, we can bounce things off each other, right?
hmm
Uh, Mike reads more than I do. I very ashamedly admit I do not read anywhere near enough.
hmm
Um, so, but he doesn't watch movies, so I've got
hmm
that covered. Uh,
There you go.
but we have very different backgrounds as well. So it's nice to be able to kind of to bounce that kind of things back and forth. And if I'm in a memory fog for something, he can jump in with a question, and you don't get stuck with 15 seconds of dead air on a live show.
No, no, I
It's
hear that.
always bad.
I I think that's part of what scares me about doing a live show for this is I do well with this because I over prepare. Like I have a list of questions. I make sure that I've read every book before or at least one book by someone before they come onto the show.
Oh,
Like I read Sigil of Enderune. Um, I like to be very familiar with my guests before they're on the show in order to prevent that. But this would definitely be easier if I had a co-star that I could bounce off of. But
well,
instead, I have you to bounce off of.
we take the opposite approach, right? So if we're going to when we started doing it, it wasn't so much about the book, it was more about getting to know the content creator, right? The artist, the author, the musician, whatever it is. Um, and not knowing anything about them, doing zero research, means that we can find out about them in the same way the audience finds out about them. The, the whole world is kind of there for us to ask. And they when they slip into something, or you look behind them and they've got like Star Wars stuff, or whatever, you can kind of go down those rabbit holes. But a lot of authors will easily fill in any silence you leave them. We've spoken to several people where at the end of the hour we've just kind of talked to each other. It's like, how many words you think you said? 5, 10? And so, and those are great, because it's just like,
Yeah.
let them go, that's
Oh
fine.
yeah. That most of my interviews, I would say it's probably about like a 50-50 split between me talking and my guest talking. I did have one guest, he just ran with my questions. I feel like I asked 5 questions and he just
Yeah,
kept going and it was good answers. So I was like, I'm not going to stop you, man. Keep going.
yeah,
Those are the easy ones.
those are great. It's
Yeah.
difficult when you're 10 minutes into it and you've asked like 15 questions, and when
Yeah.
people give you like one word answers, they go, no. It's like, oh my God.
I've been very fortunate to not have anyone nearly that bad. I have had one or two where I just go through the questions pretty quickly, and I'll run out of my list, and then we'll just vamp and just kind of talk and just hang out and shoot the shit until time runs out. But even then, those conversations have been really nice too. Like going back to what you were saying about the just the community in general, it's amazing.
It
And
really is.
yeah, and when you compared it to a cross country team, I'm kind of wondering if it's because both of those groups go through long terms of suffering together.
That's right.
And so that brings them together
That's right.
as a tighter knit group.
When my son ran cross country, there were people on the team who had T-shirts that said, "Our sport is your sport's punishment."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, so that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, I think there's that shared common experience of just banging your head against the desk, um, and searching for whatever or having something just go terribly wrong. Characters dying on you that aren't supposed to die, or characters that are supposed to die stubbornly clinging to life. And I used to think, 10 years ago, that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard when you'd hear these authors on, these famous authors say, "Well, I'm not really sure what my character is going to do." And I used to just sit there and go, "That's dumb," right? It's like, of course you know what they're going to, but yeah, there you go. It absolutely happens. You typing away and you're like, well, what the hell just happened there?
I was just talking to Michael D. Wassel about this like last week or something like that, where he was saying how we were just talking about like the first time that ever happens to you, you're like, what the hell is going on? Because it does sound ridiculous
Mhm.
when you hear it and it's never happened to you. And it's like, no, I'm the author. I decide the story. I have complete control over everything that happens here. And the reality is, if you're writing a good story, and you create real people to be in your book, they will tell you what is going to happen just as much as you decide.
I think the best real life kind of analogy for that is if you have a cat, right?
That is
People like to
so
think they
accurate.
own cats. You don't own a cat. You house a cat, you feed a cat, but you don't own that cat. So that's probably about, yeah, it's going to
As a
do what it
cat
wants to
owner,
do, and
I
there's nothing
concur.
you can do about it. So just get used to it and enjoy the purr while it purrs. Yeah.
That
You
is
just have one?
absolutely accurate. Oh, yeah, I have one cat and I have two dogs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I am
I mean,
admittedly more of a dog person, but I do like cats.
we had a point a couple of years ago where we had 6 cats, I think.
Whoa. How'd you manage
So
that?
huh?
How did you manage that?
Well, we had a few, and, my wife brought 2 of them home one day and said, "We're just gonna foster these for a few weeks," and I just kind of said, "Sure, we are." Right? And she said, "This one here has a heart problem. The vet said it won't last more than a couple of months." 6 years.
Wow.
So, um, yeah.
And the Fosters just kept coming in.
Now we stopped at 6, and,
Okay.
yeah, so we're down to 3 now, and we'll probably get a couple more.
Cats are lovely. I just think a dog is much easier to handle, though they are, I will say, more work because you
Exactly.
have to actually go out and let them out, while a
Right.
cat is more independent.
You leave the cat some water and some food in a litter box, and you can go away for a weekend, and they won't even miss you,
Yeah.
right? A
Can't
dog,
do
you
that with
have
a
to take
dog.
him out twice a day, and yeah, dogs are much more work. So we've
Yeah.
we've never actually owned a dog since we've been married.
Oh, wow. So, as someone who was juggling before editing, now you do the live shows, like fatherhood, being a tuber, and all stuff. How do you structure like your daily or weekly writing routine to stay consistent? I know you said earlier that like you'll do 2,000 words for like a week or a month and then take a break for a while, but what do you do during that time where you're really focused?
Well, I'm not consistent at all. That's the thing. I mean, the first couple of years I was putting out 2 books a year for like maybe the first 3 or 4 years. But I would just, I'd get home from work and I'd go downstairs for an hour and, you know, type, right? Um, Now, yeah. So I work in DC, so that's why I'm in this bare apartment here. Um, so, you know, my going to shows, Comic Cons, things like that, has fallen off quite a bit. this year because on my weekends off, I want to go home. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things I just kind of I used to really fight against it, and now I don't. It's like, okay, you don't, the beauty of being an indie author is you don't have someone hanging over you saying, I need pages, right? It's like if you want to produce pages, you produce pages, and if you don't want to do it, you don't do it. Um, I do try to do one a year, but I just don't stress about it too much anymore if I go a month or two without typing anything.
That's still incredible. Like even one a year is honestly pretty consistent, pretty good. I hope to get down to one a year eventually.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the first one out of the way, the rest actually fall in a lot faster because it's like doing anything else, right? Once you've done it once and you can go, oh, this, I mean, remember learning to drive? It's like, oh my God, I'm never going on the highway. It's like, whatever, let's go on the highway. It's the same type of thing. You say, okay, it's a different story every time, but what you're doing is essentially the same thing every time, right? You're trying to get these characters to go through whatever arc you've set for them to get to a certain place, and you've just got to shepherd them along the way. Um, and that's why you get these people. I mean, we've talked to people who put out like, oh yeah, I've got like 6 books in various stages of production right now, and I'm always working on 2 or 3 at the same time. It's like, oh my God, but those are people generally who that's their job, right? And they can say, I take 8 hours a day and I'm going to do like 2 hours of social media, kind of answering email, whatever. I'm going to write for an hour. I'm going to do 2 hours of whatever other kind of marketing, etc. I'm doing. I'm going to write for an hour, and they can split it up like that. And if this was my full-time job, and I would absolutely be doing that, and I would probably be able to turn out 2 or 3 books a year. Yeah, but
I feel like you're talking about Andy Peliquin.
I think so. Yeah, but it's
I
more than
haven't
just
talked
him.
to
I
him.
mean, he is not
No.
unique. There's a lot of people out there who grind like that.
Yeah, and
And
good for them. Good for them to be able to do it.
absolutely right. And the more you do it, like again, like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So hopefully, you know,
Yeah, that's the ideal.
right, right.
So you do have a full time job outside of writing. If you don't mind, what is it that you do?
I'm a writer editor for the federal government.
Oh, nice. So you write at work and then you write at home. So you get a
It's
lot of practice.
it's very different.
Yes.
I wouldn't even call it writing. It's writing adjacent. Um,
Hey, I'll take that. Anything
yeah,
adjacent. I love that phrasing.
it's very different though. So
I remember a long time ago before I started this show, I was talking to my wife about like what should I call it because I knew I was going to do it, but I hadn't started it yet. And I describe as things as this adjacent almost every other day. And so she hit me with the author adjacent. I'm like, that is just too perfect. I have to use that. So
yeah.
anytime I hear someone in the wild describing anything as something adjacent, I'm like, yes, the phrase is alive. So
Oh, when
getting into your go ahead.
I was just going to say, any indie author is something dash adjacent. You're an artist, designer adjacent. You're an editor adjacent. You're marketer adjacent. There's all of
Oh
those
yeah.
things. So
You have to wear all those hats because you don't have all the people to do it for you. Or you
right,
build a team around you to do it, but you hand pick them and like negotiate it like face to face. It's honestly pretty wild. I kind of account it to every indie author is also a small business owner. You're also an entrepreneur because you're essentially running your own business where you create the product.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot to think about there. But like digging into your process a little bit, I was kind of curious. Do you outline your stories in detail before you dive in, or do you prefer the discovery writing approach? And how did that play into your latest book, The Sigil of Enderune?
Deep down, I think I would really like to be able to plot things in advance. I can see how it would make things a lot easier, but I've tried it and it's not the way I operate. Um, so most books up until Sigil So when I wrote my first book, I knew what the premise was, and I had an idea how it was going to end. So it was just a matter of, okay, I have this map. I know I'm starting here and ending here. Just take whatever roads I'm going to take to get there, right? And that's fine. And that's what I do. And I write from chapter one through the end in a straight line. And as I was writing book one, I had a little throwaway line about a sword, and that stuck with me. And I said, "Oh, that can be a book two. I can do two books in this, right?" And so I knew where I was starting, and I knew where I wanted it to go. Enderune was a little different. I kind of knew the idea for the magic system kind of came to me during one of our interviews, um, and I scribbled it down and said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to." And I had no idea what the story was going to be, really. Even as I was writing it, I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And so, if you've read it, so the magic system in Sigil is such that you have to write down a spell to cast it. All magic has to be written in ink, and different inks are more potent for different types of things. Right? There's like three different categories of ink. Each category has several different colors. You can cast any spell with any ink, it doesn't matter, but the potency will vary based on the color and what you're using it for, and how long an uninterrupted line of ink and how thick an uninterrupted line of ink you can write. The longer, the thicker, the more powerful the spell. So there's some built-in limitations there. When I first started the first draft of it, I got really in the weeds about all of that. And I realized, yeah, that's just too much. That's that, even I'm a little bored by this. Um, so I think I scrapped about 20,000 words or so and kind of went back and started over. I had this big long like 7,000 word prologue, and I let a couple people read it and they're like, so I ripped that out and kind of took pieces of it and put it in different places. Um, but yeah, during the writing of it, the character there's an older character, a mage named Sinjin, who is kind of he is the one who teaches the main character, right, about magic. My intention was for Sinjin not to make it past like chapter two. Yeah, so I was like, okay, how am I going to get rid of him, right? Because that's in my head, that's what was going to happen. But then I was writing it, it's like, you know what? Let's just keep him around for a while. And the more I went with it, it's like I kind of like this character. He serves a nice purpose. I'll just leave him. You know, what will happen to him will happen to him. But all the way through it, whereas previous books I had that end in mind. I think it was. I don't want to misquote the person it was, um, and it wasn't Neil Gaiman. I think it was Philip Pullman, who's maybe it wasn't. I don't remember who it was. Just disregard that. Who said, you know, you can only see 20 feet ahead of you with your headlights on in your car, but you can drive 1,000 miles that way, right? So that's what this book was. I didn't really know what the end destination was. I was just doing it 20 feet out the entire time. And I think it was about halfway through the book I kind of started putting it all together, and all of these characters like, okay, this is what I can do, right? And we can do this and this and this. And for the longest time I didn't know what the Sigil of Enderune was.
Oh, wow.
It was the title of the book. I knew that. And I
Oh,
knew it
you
was a
had the title before you knew what it
oh
was?
yeah, yeah. Um, I had the map and everything, but I didn't know what it was in the book, right? I didn't know what the widget was. Um, and I think, yeah, about halfway through the book, I kind of finally figured out, oh, okay, this is how we can do it. This is how, you know, it can be discovered or whatever. Um, and then it kind of went from there. So that this was probably the most discovery-ish of discovery writing that
Oh,
I've had
wow.
to do. I mean,
So you've really been falling deeper and deeper into discovery writing, like,
it's not
as a
something
progression, or did it spike here?
I think this is just one that just happened like that because it isn't a book that I've had in the back of my head for a long time. It was a book that just kind of came to me on a Michael Roberti was on our show, and he was talking about something about a magic system that he used, and it made me think of this, and they're two very different systems, but something he said just kind of hit this thought in me, and I scribbled it down while Mike was talking to him, and, so, yeah, I just said, "Okay, I've gotta write this book," and it provided a nice break because the previous 9 books have all been in the same world. So the Sturdy Stone Saga and Ranger's Deck, the main character of Ranger's Deck actually comes into the 30 Stone Saga in book 4, right? So it's all people you kind of know from the first series, same world, a little bit different storyline. Um, I just needed to do something different, so I just kind of latched onto this. It was either this or a cozy mystery.
Well, hey, you still have time. You could do that cozy mystery
Oh,
next.
I'll get to it.
But I'm really glad you kept Sinjin in because I think he is probably like my second favorite character in the series or in the book. Faden is my first. I really
Really?
like Faden.
Aiden?
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, I liked him. I thought he was really cool. I liked him throughout the story. I know he's not the most shining or the most prominent of characters, but I really liked what you did with him. I thought he was
Oh,
very
good.
interesting. He acted on the story so much. He was very interesting for me. But Sinjin was probably my second favorite. I liked him a lot too. So I'm glad you didn't cut him in chapter 2. It
Yeah,
increased
I
my
ended up
enjoyment.
the pair of Sinjin and Gorwin,
Yeah.
I think they're just kind of this, like, curmudgeonly old couple almost, you know?
Almost, yeah. They do have that like old married vibe, but
Right.
platonic.
One interspecies, but okay. Um,
Also that.
yeah. Faden was gonna be very different as well.
Mhm.
When I started doing it, Faden was actually gonna be a bad guy. He
Wow.
was go you know, and he was it was gonna be that kind of little love triangle kinda thing
Mhm.
between him, Finn, and Kalo. And I think I got about a paragraph into that and went, "Why? Why does it have to be like that? Why can't he just be happy for his friends?" You know?
Yeah. I
And
think
so
that was part of what drew me to him is that like it is the classic setup that you have three young individuals and it is the setup of a love triangle, but you very early nip it in the bud with Faden just going like, I'm glad my friends are happy
yeah,
and move on with the story.
it's just because it's been so overdone, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like these guys they've known each other for 10 years. You know, certainly this would have come out before now.
Yeah.
So let's just move on, with them being friends and I'm very glad I ended up that way as well.
I am as well. I think it was a really good choice for the story because you're right. Like that trope has gotten pretty stale. And while like it still can be done well and is still very popular, especially in a lot of subgenres, I think most readers are looking for something a little more refreshing. And I think that's what you pulled off in this,
Isn't
while
that
still
weird
being
that
in like a classic fantasy.
that's refreshing? Just, 3 people who get along?
Yeah.
That's now refreshing.
Well, of course it is. Books run on conflict. Without the conflict, you have no story. But the
Right.
conflict doesn't always have to be this, is the point.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I would describe this for people who are wondering if you've ever played Dungeons& and Dragons, basically, at the beginning of every D&D game, your characters will meet in a tavern, right? Usually there's a bar fight or something that brings them together. This is a book-long tavern meet. At the end, there's several people together, and there's a fighter, there's a mage, there's a thief, there's a cleric, right? And they are going to go on because there will be another book with these characters. Um, so it's basically a book-long D&D meetup of people. They just all got up to level 2 and they're ready to go.
It really feels like I know this is the phrase that's like thrown around in traditional circles and stuff like that is standalone with series potential because like for the most part this is a full story start to finish. You have a full story,
Right.
but then at the very end you're like, but we also have this, so we can keep going.
And I did that on purpose because that's kind of what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a series where you can read a book from it, but I don't want to number them, right? I mean, it, they they won't have numbers, but there will be an order, obviously. But I want to do it where the next one, if someone picks it up, they're going to be able to, there'll be like a chapter or so where you're kind of reintroducing the characters a little bit, but it will be a brand new kind of thing that they're going to go do. And there won't be an overarching kind of plot thing that follows them through the whole thing. Each one will be its own self-contained unit. And, there might be two of them, there might end up being, much more than two, who knows? But that way nobody's disappointed and I'm not, you know, if people like really don't like it or whatever, and I don't feel obligated to make another one if if it gets to that point where people are like, yeah, not really. So, okay,
No,
let's try something
I
else.
definitely feel that. Like it feels very episodic, which I think is becoming more popular really with authors is writing more episodic things. I think the huge influence is like Conan is like one of the most episodic series you could ever read where you can just drop in and like, yeah, there's some progression over arching all of the stories, but for the most part you can pick one up and be like, heck yeah, Conan,
Right, right.
and have fun.
It's like, who's this Red Sonja person? I've never seen her before, but oh well, we'll figure it out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You'll dive in
No,
and it'll be fine.
I will definitely say that is becoming a more popular format, especially like in these interviews. A lot of people are saying that they're planning to do more episodic thing.
Books used to be $6 for a paperback, right? And now they're like 20. So excuse me. So I'm at a show at a table, and I haven't been to one yet with Sigil, but I've got 9 books, and people like look at the Rangers Deck series and go, "Oh," it's like, so which one should I start with? It's like, well, you can read Rangers Deck on your own, right? And you should be fine. However, I know how it's going to end, right? I know what happens at the end of book 5. So to get the full effect, you really need to read these 6 as well. So now they're looking at, well, now I'm looking at $180 to get all of these books, right? And I don't know that I want to invest $180 on someone whose book I've never read. Um, so yeah, I still sell more of Magic's Genesis than anything else when I do a show just because of that. And there are people who will come up and say, "Give me one of everything," right? And I love those people. God bless them. Those people just absolutely make a show weekend. They really do. Um, but
Thank you for your service, people who do this.
yeah, there are very few of them. I'll probably go back and re-edit and recover the first 6 books again. And when I do it, I will turn it into 2 trilogies instead of a 6-book series because there's a natural endpoint at the end of book 3 where the antagonist from books 1, 2, and 3 has an arc complete, and then a separate antagonist picks up in book 4. So yeah, I really wish I would have done that to begin with, but again, I was fairly new. I'd been doing it for like a year and a half. It's like whatever, this is good.
Hey, hindsight's like 2020, and I have heard that like reskinning and recovering your books and doing like a relaunch is a way to churn up interest in books that you are trying to revitalize. I've seen it happen a few times online to like some pretty good success too as well. Especially since like you know so much more now, you have so much more experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that I'd like to do in the future, right? I mean, the whole Rangers deck thing is based on, I call them something different in the book, but tarot cards, right? Guy meets an old lady in the woods, as one is wont to do in these things, and she lays him out a bunch of cards and hands him 11 cards, Only one of them has a picture, and he has to kind of solve that riddle of that picture before the next one shows itself. And he has 11 cards because when I started, I was planning for 11 books. I had a 3.5, 3x5 index card for 11 books that said, this is the title of the book. This is generally what happens in 2 sentences. That is as much planning as I've ever done for a book series. I got into book 3 and went, I don't need to drag this out for 11 books. I can do this in 5, right? I can tell the story I want to tell in 5, and there's no reason to do 11 of these. Um, so I guess I have 6 books left over to do another series down the road in the same world, generations in the future.
I think it is so hard to plan a whole series, though, especially a long running series like 11 books, because it doesn't like I am an outliner, I am a planner. I definitely like to outline and figure out all the world building stuff before I get into the story. But N no plan survives contact with the enemy. Like, as soon as you get into the story, you will see what the actual problems were with your outline when you're actually getting in there, and especially, like, when you have those moments where the characters turn up to you and go, "No, I'm not doing that." Your outline can't account for that because you really can't feel who your characters are until you're running into the story side by side with them. So I think you really have to do at least some discovery writing with them. And if you add any discovery writing, you're going to break your outline. It's going to be shattering in the woods somewhere.
But it would still be nice to kind of have that, right? I mean, you've probably seen, I guess the best example is J.K. Rowling. Have you seen those things that her planning documents for the Harry
Oh,
Potter
I've
series?
not actually.
Oh my God,
No.
look them up. So, excuse me. She has this giant piece of paper and she has like chapter one, two, three, going across the top. And then she has all the characters laid out on the side. And then what each character is doing in each chapter for the whole thing. It's
That
crazy,
is wild.
right? And I don't know. To think about it like that, just to sit there and think about it, I have to actually kind of write the story to know, right? I
Yeah.
can't just say, oh, well, and then you get people, I know people who have done this. They say, yeah, I've got my book outline. It's like, how long is it? They go like 35,000 words. It's like, oh my God, you've written a third of a book for an outline. What the hell? You
Yeah,
know,
for some people, they get so deep into their outline that their outline acts as a first draft.
but they don't. Mike and I talked to this guy in England. He was
Mhm.
he was so interesting. He has been building this world for like 15 years or something.
I
He
know
has
who you're talking about. Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of words written, not a single book, not a
Mhm.
chapter, right? But he has like lineage and he has backstory and gods and all kinds of stuff. And we're like, good God, man, write the book. You know, it's just, what was it? I think it was Patton that said, I'd rather have a plan, an 80% plan violently executed now than a 100% plan later,
Yeah.
right? It's
No, no, I agree. Like,
it's not going to
go
be
ahead.
perfect. It's just not.
Yeah. Man. All right. So we're getting near towards the end. I did want to ask you though, uh, before we get to the end of this episode, what advice would you give aspiring authors weighing the decision between indie and traditional publishing? Because you are indie published yourself. I don't know if you have any experience with like going into the query trenches or anything, but
No.
I was curious what your opinion was.
I think at the end of the day, if a publisher came up and said, I will write you this lovely check and we will take over your books and we will publish them for you, I would probably say, oh my God, thank you. Right. But that is not the world we live in. And from what I have gleaned from people who have done this is that unless they write you, you know, a year's pay kind of advance check, they're not going to spend money promoting your book, right? And whereas we can put out a book or two a year, whatever we feel we can do, you're looking at probably a couple of years between books with a traditional publisher. And oh, by the way, they still want you to do all those things you have to do as an indie publisher. They want you to have social media outreach. They want you to be, talking up, your book and doing things like this and et cetera, et cetera. What you don't have is ownership of your IP, right? So if they give you a 5 book deal and 3 books into it, they say, yeah, this isn't selling. Well, of course it's not selling. You're not promoting it, but it's not selling. Thank you. But and now you can't do anything with that IP unless you can buy it back from them, right? So there's that. I sell a book at a show, I'm going to make, what, $5 to $10, depending on what it is, hardcover, paperback, whatever. If I am published traditionally and a book sells at Barnes and Noble, I probably see $1 of that. But those first dollars go back to pay whatever they gave me to begin with, right? Having said that, right, you're also weighing up it's a much better chance to get, even though the chance is small, it's still a bigger chance of having something happen to it where it gets turned into a movie or a series or whatever it is. And there's also the kind of gravitas, I guess. There's still that still exists a little bit of being an author with a a big 3 or big 5, however many are left, publisher, right? There's still a little social cachet, I guess, in that in some circles. I think that's diminishing rapidly. Um, so I guess what I would tell someone is it depends on what you want to do, right? If if you're just doing it for ego's sake, give it a shot. Go to traditional, and get your agent and all that kind of thing and do all that. Great. If you really think that what you have will be better served with an agent and a traditional publisher, again, give it a go. Don't be surprised if you don't hear anything for months on end. And, but the reader landscape is changing in such a way that, and this is really true, you see it a lot with like romance books, is people don't want to wait that 2 years, right? It's like binge watching TV. Before it used to be, well, I have to wait a year or two for this to come out on TV to see it. And now we can't hit the button fast enough that says next episode because heaven forbid we have to wait 15 seconds, for that Netflix episode to change or whatever. And I think readers are kind of getting the same way. And with like romance, you have readers who will read a couple of books a day. So you have these people churning out books, and they find their audience, and they're doing great, you know. But at the end of the day, there's only so many readers, and there's a lot of people writing. The bar to entry is barely existent now. But I have noticed a deepening professionalism within the indie sphere, right? Whereas now I wasn't out there, back in the early teens, but from everybody who was, they used to say that, you just put something out and it will sell, right? And now it's kind of evolved to that stage that you can't just do that anymore. You have to learn your craft. You have to, you know, have a good cover. So you have to know what that looks like. You've got to do all these things, which makes it more difficult, kind of raises the bar a little bit to be taken seriously. Um, but ultimately you have to find a market. But there's always a market, and I think that's probably the big takeaway for someone thinking about doing it. There is a market for your book, regardless of what genre it is, and to be honest, regardless if it's any good or not, right? Because there are people who hate Tolkien, and they have problems, they have issues. That's on them, right? But there are people who hate Tolkien. There are people who hate Shakespeare. I myself cannot stand Hemingway, right? Just despise Ernest Hemingway. people love him, right? So there's always going to be people who really, really like what you do, regardless of what it is. Your job is to find them,
That is
with
a really hopeful note to
right.
end on. Good job turning that around.
I'll get there in the end. It's like a big
There we
car.
go. We
Take me a
landed it.
while, but give me an anchor, I'll turn it around.
No worries. Um, Ro, thank you for coming onto the show. But could you tell the people where can they find you? Where can they find your books?
Okay, so it's linktr.ee/robushy.
For your
And
link tree?
yep,
Okay.
linktr.ee/robushy. And I have also just started a Substack, which is also Robushy. So you can find me there. I haven't gotten into Substack a lot yet. I got rid of my website and said I'll try Substack and see what happens. And I just started that account a couple of weeks ago, so it's a work in progress.
Well, there we go, people. Flock over there. Help him build it up. He's trying to get something new over there.
And Twitter, Robushy. So come say hi.
Excellent. Ro, again, thank you for coming onto the show, and we're going to have you back on next week where we're going to be talking about self-editing.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Of course. And remember, folks, until next time, let's be author adjacent together. See ya. Awesome.
Cool.
Oh,
Thank you.
That was a good interview,
quick.
man. Like, this is really fun to talk.
I looked down when you said we're almost done. It's like, what?